Today is Abraham Lincoln's 216th birthday, and that provides a fitting frame for this midweek update. In one of his first speeches to Congress in 1861, President Lincoln said, "The struggle of today is not altogether for today. It is for a vast future also." As I was watching Elon Musk in the Oval Office yesterday, with little X sitting on his shoulders and sticking his fingers in his father's ears, I said to myself, for the first time since the assassinations of the 1960s, I can actually see and not just hope for a future. Musk's son is 4 years old, going on 5. So think about this. Given a normal lifespan, he and others of his generation will step foot into the 22nd century. Donald Trump is the force of nature which is at the center of the changes which are occurring at an almost dizzying pace. But you can also view him as the fulcrum upon which a younger generation is starting to apply force to shape the future. I'm Susan Kokinda, and in this week's update, I'll be looking at the state of the nomination battles, the DOGE revolution, J.D. Vance's speech on AI in Paris, as well as touching on some of Trump's international initiatives. As this is being recorded, the floor vote on Tulsi Gabbard's nomination is scheduled, and it's expected that she will be confirmed on the Senate floor. Various commentators have pointed out the administration must have been pretty confident to let this go ahead with J.D. Vance as a potential tiebreaker if needed out of the country. As soon as the vote on Tulsi is concluded, the Senate will take the procedural vote on RFK Jr., which is expected to pass, and then to clear the way for the final confirmation vote. Think back to how tenuous those nominations were a few weeks ago. What's changed? Well, Donald Trump announced them before he was inaugurated and before he began to completely reshape the political space inside the Beltway. For approximately the last 40 years, members of Congress have bowed to the power of the financier elite and to what is called the fourth branch of government or administrative state, especially through its lawfare arm, and to the power of media-shaped public opinion, whether these members of Congress did so willingly or unwillingly. You were not a factor, and the power of the president was only an occasional or temporary factor. We saw that when Ronald Reagan, working with visionaries like Edward Teller and Lyndon LaRouche, defied Henry Kissinger and the British geopoliticians and announced the Strategic Defense Initiative in 1983, which was then subsequently sabotaged by the neocons and Wall Street. Of course, last week, Donald Trump revived Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative. Well, the power of the presidency is back, being wielded by Donald Trump in ways not seen in any of our lifetimes. And the power of the American people is back. It's being shown in overloaded Capitol Hill switchboards and new congressional staffers being brought on to handle the demands of the American people. So don't let up. The immediate message is confirm them all. And the durable message is give the Trump team the backing to make this full revolution. Promethean Action is planning on sending a team of veteran organizers to Congress in the coming weeks, armed with our 2 foundational ebooks and pamphlets, What President Trump Can Do with the American System 2.0, and It Is the British Who Murder Our Presidents. You can find links to both of those in the description of this video. Look at their content, and you can imagine how powerful our deployment into Congress will be in this newly defined political phase space. Paid memberships to Promethean Action will support our intervention with these very big ideas. So, speaking of the fourth branch of government or the administrative state referred to earlier, Elon Musk and Donald Trump took dead aim at that in their Oval Office press conference on the progress of DOGE yesterday. While the press fulminated about DOGE being a hostile takeover and non-transparent, Musk put it very simply that this is a restoration of democracy. He said, if the public votes for representatives, senators, and the president, and then those votes don't count because decisions are made by an unelected fourth branch of government, then that's a problem. And it's a problem that's been in the making for about 150 years. when the British Empire, through their stooge, then professor and later president Woodrow Wilson, explicitly called for the elimination of the American Constitution and the imposition of a British parliamentary system where decisions would be made by the administrative state and the financier elite. Musk also went after the absurd and often corrupt practices of the Treasury and USAID, which have been the initial targets of DOGE. Barbara Boyd has covered the dirty CIA-tainted history of USAID in a post on our website, and Musk underlined the point that USAID is being used to influence elections. When it came to some of the revolutions about the Treasury, any small businessman or individual has ever had the IRS crawling up its ass had to be watching this with their jaws dropping on the ground. Treasury has essentially been writing blank checks with no categorization codes, no memos, no indication of why the money is being dispersed. That's why you can't carry out an audit. I've been attending meetings hosted by Detroit pastor Lorenzo Sewell, who became pretty famous for his speeches at the Republican convention and the inauguration. Pastor Sewell is passionate about liberating the people of Detroit from the grip of Democratic politicians who have impoverished the city's largely Black population. At one meeting, a community activist said that the most powerful weapon we can deploy is the F-bomb. Now, we're in a church pastored by a very devout man, and everyone was shocked. Then the activist said, by that, I mean forensic audit. Walk into any city council meeting, he said, or now, how about the Treasury? Or how about the Federal Reserve? And say, forensic audit. But Musk went on to touch on another important aspect of DOGE's mission, which overlaps J.D. Vance's speech in Paris, which I'll get to shortly. Musk said that in streamlining the government and cutting out waste and corruption, we will increase prosperity. By shifting from low or negative productivity jobs to high productivity roles, he said, you can increase the total output of goods and services, which means a higher standard of living for everyone. Later on, he said, free the builders to build, and we can achieve higher rates of growth and can lower inflation. Now let's go to Vice President Vance's speech at the AI conference in Paris. Mike Stager will shortly have a post on the Promethean Action website, which discusses in more detail Vance's direct assault on the censorship regime of the globalists, which is most intensely imposed in Europe and especially in Britain, a favorite target of Musk's. He powerfully asserts the principles of the American Constitution in terms of the right of free speech and, in truth, free thought. And there is a very moving section of that speech where Vance speaks of handling General Lafayette's saber and reflects on, quote, the project that Lafayette and the American founders set off to create. But very much in parallel with Musk's remarks in the Oval Office, J.D. Vance addressed the economic promise of AI from a very American system standpoint. Quote, now at this moment, we face the extraordinary prospect of a new industrial revolution, one on par with the invention of the steam engine or Bessemer steel, quote, unquote. And he further makes the point that it will take an energy and manufacturing revolution to accomplish this. But then he takes up one of the most understandable concerns about AI, a concern not unlike one related to the original introduction of machines or automation. And again, here's a quote from J.D. Vance. We will always center American workers in our AI policy. We refuse to view AI as a purely disruptive technology that will inevitably automate away our labor force. We believe and we will fight for policies that ensure that AI is going to make our workers more productive, and we expect that they will reap the rewards with higher wages, better benefits, and safer and more prosperous communities. From law to medicine, manufacturing, the most immediate applications of AI will involve supplementing, not replacing, the work done by Americans. Both Elon Musk and J.D. Vance are getting at a fundamental metric of the unique American system of economics, increasing the productive powers of labor through advances in science and technology. This is Alexander Hamilton's policy, and Lincoln's, and Trump's favorite president, William McKinley's, and we haven't seen it in action for a very long time. Let me briefly conclude with some of the latest foreign policy developments occurring in the new Donald Trump phase space. Yesterday, President Trump met with Jordan's King Abdullah and the Crown Prince of Jordan. Now, I want you to compare the headlines you are seeing through the fake news about that meeting, about how King Abdullah has rejected Trump's proposals, with the actual opening statement of the king. I truly believe that with all of the challenges in the Middle East, I finally see somebody who can take us across the finish line to bring stability, peace, and prosperity to all of us in the region, the king said. He went on to announce that Jordan will take 2,000 children from Gaza who are suffering from cancer and other illnesses, which President Trump said he did not know about in advance, and which he called a beautiful gesture. Like the negotiations with Ukraine and Russia, this is a work in progress. Egypt will soon be making its own proposal after meetings in Riyadh with Jordan and other countries. But again, all of this is happening in a completely different strategic geometry, one dominated by Donald Trump's commitment to the sovereignty of nations and peace, not the empire's commitment to globalization and war. Ignore the analysts and reporters who are looking at this from the old paradigm. While it would be Pollyannish to say that either of these horrible conflicts will be easy to solve, the difference is Donald Trump actually wants to solve them. When I was watching the reporters in the Oval Office badger Elon Musk, or looking at the pessimistic coverage of Trump's initiatives in the Mideast and Russia-Ukraine, or the unhinged actions of Democratic members in Congress protesting Trump's actions, I feel like I'm looking at a collection of dinosaurs stomping around and asserting their presumed continued dominance right before the asteroid hits and then the mammals take over. So my advice is don't take your analysis and news coverage from the denizens of Jurassic Park. I'm going to conclude as I began with a quote from Abraham Lincoln when he announced for office in 1832. Towering genius disdains a beaten path. It seeks regions hitherto unexplored. Welcome to Unexplored Regions.
Thanks for watching. Please take a moment and subscribe to our free newsletter at prometheanaction.com.